So, putting the conserve back into conservatism, there are some ideas that you and I might not talk about very often, and one of them is the base root of the word conservatism. It's the act of conserving the concepts, powers, and practices that you're used to doing. Now, something that has kind of been lost, and it's been lost since about the Civil War, was true Southern conservatism from the southeast of America. And that concept has kind of been replaced with what's known as the religious right. And part of that is because of the Democrat rebellion after the Civil War, and the carpetbagging, and the Reconstruction, and then the KKK, and the Prohibition, and the women's suffrage, and the on and on and on and on and on. However, it started to reemerge somewhat in the 1970s, right next to the Christian conservative, or the Christian right. And that is the anti-authoritarian, self-sufficient right of the South. And I'll give you an example of a common idea in practice. So I went to the grocery store today to buy potatoes and some raw tomatoes to make tomato juice. I had them use a paper bag. Now, why? Well, first of all, I prefer paper bags to plastic because I feel that the paper bag is more substantial than the plastic bag. I've had more plastic bags rip on me than paper bags. But that's not the real reason. The real reason was I also hand make the soap that I use every day. And when making that soap, I need something to lay it out on. I also need something to line the mold for the soap that I make. So I use paper sacks for the soap mold liner, because I can cut them just right so that I use all of the paper and am able to put the soap into the mold without having to line it with something else. And then that paper can go into the recycling and be recycled at a paper recycling facility. I also use the paper bags to dry the soap on. Once it's come out of the mold and it's starting to harden up, I leave it sitting on a brown paper bag wrapped in a towel so that it will continue to harden faster and the paper will absorb the oil. Now, when I get ready to cut it, I cut it directly on the paper bag. And I put a cutting board underneath it, and I cut onto the paper bag. And I leave the soap sitting on the paper bag, and I continue to turn it and dry it on that paper bag. Because that paper bag gives it some insulation from whatever it's sitting on, is easy to dispose of and recycle. Once I'm done making the soap, I can stick it in the recycling can. And it'll go to the recycling center and get reused. Even if it wasn't going to the recycling center, I could then take the paper bag and shred it and soak it in olive oil, say, add dryer lint to it, and then coat it in paraffin wax and turn it into fire starters for my barbecue. So the paper bag in and of itself has a lot of uses. And so when I realize I'm getting low on paper bags and I'm going to the grocery store, I will get my groceries in paper bags. Now, a lot of times when I'm not going to go get a paper bag, I will use a reusable bag instead. And I'll come in, unload my groceries, the reusable bag goes right to the front door, and I will pick them back up the next time I go to get into my car and put them in my trunk. And that way I have them. And that way I don't have to think about it. And I'm not wasting plastic bags or wasting paper bags. I'm conserving my resources. I'm using less and gaining more out of it. And that was something that the conservative mindset, especially of the South, was very big on, was not being wasteful. It was one of the reasons the United States developed a type of alcohol called corn squeezins. And what it was is it was the raw sugar from the corn stalks were poured into jugs after they had been thrown. They took clay jugs, they shoved corn cobs into the mouth of the clay jug. They lined the bottom of their grain silo. They would put the stalks into the silo and let the stalks slowly compress and squeeze out all that juice from the corn stalks. Well, now we call it high fructose corn syrup because it's basically corn syrup, and they alter it to make it into high fructose corn syrup. But before, they would ferment it and distill it and use it as corn liquor. And it would be used as an alcohol compound, either for sterilizing and cleaning, for polishing, cooking with, making medications with, things of that nature. Even used in some skin salves. So that idea, that using everything possible, is the idea of conservatism, conserving your environment. And so I want to make sure that people start to think about it in that aspect as well, because realistically, conservatives don't need to be Christian to be conservatives. They don't need to be political one way or the other to be conservatives. You can be a conservative because of how you live your life. And as long as you ensure that you have freedom, respect for others, willingness to discuss new ideas, and want to conserve your way of life, you're technically a conservative. You're just not necessarily the type of conservative everybody thinks of. Well, I want to thank you all for joining me for this discussion. I know I kind of bared my soul a little bit more on this than I normally do, and I'm going to include a link down below to minds.com/veteranmountainman where you can come on over and chat with me about this or any other topic you want. Once again, please remember to like and subscribe, or if you're on VidMe, follow me. Eventually here on VidMe, I will get a subscription system up. I'm getting some channel cover art made for me now. It's custom stuff. I should have it in 2 or 3 days. Once I do, I will enable the subscribe button. I'm only going to ask $1 for subscriptions though, so if you're wanting to, when I start allowing subscriptions, feel free to subscribe. It would be appreciated. Thank you all again, and have a good day.